This is a pretty cool 70s SG. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. This thing popped up on Reverb one night, and I thought, $1,300 bucks, 70s Gibson SG Custom? Let's check it out. This exact version of an SG is the first one I ever played, and I fell in love with them. We're talking circa 1973-74 when you can find this exact spec. If you grew up with the 60s ones, you might not like them because they got the blockier horns, they're not as sharp, they've got the harmonica bridges, but I love the unbound ebony fretboards. This is the version that came right after the top-loaded era, when they had the control plate on the front and they weren't back-routed. I'm not as big of a fan of the early 70s SGs as I am when the Standard comes back. But you could find them with unbound ebony boards as well as bound rosewood. Those are your only two options for the SG Standard. If you happen to find an unbound rosewood one, it started life as an SG special and somebody had routed out the mini humbuckers for full-sized ones. There are no exceptions to that rule, and I see that all the time as a mistake. So now that we know what it normally looks like, let's go back to this. We've got this interesting caramel sunburst quilty top with dual humbuckers, some sort of like an upgraded bridge, somebody slapped a Bigsby on it. And we've modified our control layout quite significantly. In fact, it looks like a late 80s SG special now. Just a little bit different, but it's simplified. It's probably neck volume, bridge volume, master tone, and then you've got your toggle switch down here. Which, that's kind of a bad location for it. Isn't your Bigsby kind of in the way? But speaking of 80s SGs, do you see where they moved the output jack? On the side? Awesome, I love that. If you need that feature stock on a guitar, seek out an 80s SG Standard. It also looks like they offset our strap button, probably to help with neck dive. But regardless, some things have seriously happened to this. Due to the fretboard styling, I don't think it was one of the earlier top-routed ones. So it appears somebody put either a maple cap on this, or maybe just a wooden veneer, most likely, and then they refinished over top of it. That way they could modify their control layout and everything would look good. That's a fantastic way to hide sins. Because then all you have to do is touch up the edges of the paint, how they've done here with that kind of copper golden hue, and then nobody notices that you've only put a veneer over the top. So it was quite ingenious. But the problem with modified 70s guitars is you have to be careful. There were so many lawsuit companies that would make a fairly similar Gibson equivalent, but at least under their own brand. It's not like today when they try to pass them off as real Gibsons with the logos. They're at least brazen enough to put their own branding on it. But it's very common for people to take those, rework them, and make them look like Gibsons. So that's what I was suspicious of at first, but this fretboard inlays, it looks okay. Somebody's put a brass nut on it. Looking at the face of our headstock, it's very yellowed over, but everything looks about right here. The seller's professional. He showed a photo of the truss rod underneath there. Everything checks out. But then when you flip over to the back, it's oof. We've got the original tuners, which is good. Those are worth some money, but we've lost the original serial. Now somebody has marketed on there, but how do you know they just didn't make that up and this thing was stolen? And with the refinish also coming back here, how do we know it doesn't have a headstock repair? How do we know it doesn't have a heel break or what other things have been done to it? This was sprayed over relatively professionally, looking at the photos. However, when I got here, it looks like there's some sort of like a weird paint run. But now that I'm looking a second time, is that just a reflection of something? But when buying a completely refinished guitar, just assume there's a sin hiding under that paint. That's the reason why refinished guitars go down in value so significantly. And because you're breaking the originality of it anyways. But apparently, this is the guitar before it had the work done. Yeah, I know, it's a blurry photo. He could have been misled when he purchased it. There's no way to know for sure. But if we can believe it, somebody put some sort of a trapeze tailpiece on it. It had multiple mini toggle switch holes for coil splitting and phase inversions. Looks like one of those Leo Kwan wrap tails. And somebody rebirthed it into here. So at $1,300, I thought, hey, that'd be a lot of fun to review. And it just so happened the owner of the shop, Original White Shag Guitars, had emailed me about one of those weird Epiphone Airstream guitars. He was trying to see if I was interested or wanted to review it. So I had made an offer on both of them, which I thought for sure we were going to make a deal on that. But unfortunately, it didn't pan out. But I wanted to share this cool SG anyway, because I think he had it priced very fair, especially with all the uncertainties of it. Apparently, it had some Dean pickups in it. If I would have reviewed it, I probably would have threw a modern Gibson set in there, but it really does remind me of the potential Ed Roman Flying V that I have, where it was modified in a similar way, but maybe a little bit more extreme. But that's not all we need to talk about from this guy's inventory. He had a 1965 SG Junior labeled as Silver Fox. I mean, it was $3,700. I had to click on it because Silver Fox is a cool finish. Now this one's like more literally Silver Fox, whereas most vintage ones, they have more like a green hue to it. Love those vintage Epiphone coronets. But this one's like blending that with SG Platinum vibes. Like you get the platinum knobs, platinum pickguard. We no longer have the P90, but you still have the wrap tail with the lightning bar adjustment on it. And it looks like most of this would be reversible if you wanted to refinish it in a more traditional color. But I wonder if that's scratching or if it's finish checking. Either way, if you wanted to redo it, you would finally sand it and you'd be fine. But it has cool player grade vibes to it, right? You would never do this to an all original 60s Junior at this point in time, but sometime in the past, these were just cheap used guitars and people would have fun and modify them and make them exactly what they wanted. I mean, that fretboard looks fantastic and the headstock's looking pretty good, but it's always hard to judge how a refinished guitar is going to feel in your hands, so buying them online can be a bit scary. But he was asking $3,700 for that, and it didn't even last a day. But don't hang up the phone yet, we've got a couple of other cool ones to check out. Starting with this 1991 Gibson Les Paul Custom. I was kind of shocked this sold as fast as it did, but at the same time, it had the vibe. When people talk about aged white customs, this is kind of what they're talking about. Like if you want the really heavy aged Randy Rhoads looking one. But Yamano, in reference to Gibson guitars, refers to a Japanese dealer. They've got the rumors that anything less than the best they sent back. They were a picky dealer for Gibson. So people automatically assume if it was originally from Yamano, it's a step above the rest. It's a bragging rights thing. Do they necessarily sell for a premium? I mean, it depends on the guitar. But this thing spent some time in Japan, and my goodness, you know, it used to be a perfect white color like you're seeing here, and now it's aged like this. You used to be able to pull these things out of Japan relatively cheaply. I mean, we're talking like $2,200. I know because I bought a couple of them back in the late 2018s, and you'd be able to find buyers for them here in the States that love these aged relics for like $3,000. Now this one is about a step above the rest. Look at that headstock, it's gorgeous. The inlays are nice and yellowed over, right? But the edge of the binding is like extra ambered, so you almost have like two different hues going on. And yes, indeed, this one does date to 1991, 130th day of the year. Production number 334. Somebody's replaced the Grovers for Godos. It's possible that this actually started with the Gibson Schallers that didn't have any screw hole in them. So if you were to remove this and see a big indentation into the wood, then you would know. That's the best thing about those tuners is you can put whatever aftermarket one on that you want and it'll look original. For as much as this one has yellowed, it hasn't really been worn too much. Like you can see a little bit on the neck. So maybe that's what made somebody go for it, because it's just all the finish checking without necessarily the wear and tear. So there we go. That's why it went so fast. Also, I can see a guitar like that selling a lot quicker in a music shop when somebody can just instantly fall in love with it. Although what I found interesting is it says with certificate of authenticity. 1991, I'm pretty sure is a bit too early for that. So maybe they're just talking about the Yamano music booklet. But next, a weird one from Sam Ash. So this one popped up and I was like, ha, weird dumb looking guitar with two pieces of maple not reflecting the same way. I like and feel bad for guitars like these. And when it was first listed, it was $17.99. So I thought they're like, oh, nah, nobody's gonna wanna buy this thing. It's a two-facer. So then me and three other people threw them an offer and then they raised their price to $2,400. And it's ended, so maybe somebody fell in love with it for what it is, because it is unique. You could make the argument, did somebody tape off half of it and then leave it as like a sun fading experiment? It's possible, but usually it's just the wood reflecting the lights in different ways. Now we only have two photos from the exact angle, so we can't necessarily judge this one, but this was a 2018 Les Paul Standard. It's got a nice back. It would have made for a fun review. Because look at it here. You see, in the baby photo, everything looks about right. But the thing to keep in mind is if you hang your guitars up as a display, that's what it's going to look like, if that bothers you. And here was another cool one by the Guitar Rescue. One of the earlier single pickup Les Paul customs. These things always sell so fast. Mod collection or original runs. This one being from 2015, it would have the Richlight fretboard, so that makes it unique. It's got the sideways layout. It's not the wrap tail, it's the stop bar tune-o-matic, if that's what you prefer. Honestly, 4,000 was not bad. I always see people hating on these things in guitar groups, but you can always tell the guys who have played one of these versus the guys who haven't. It's easy, and I'm sure I would hate on these things too had I not been lucky enough to try one, all the way back when I bought a cool Sunburst in 1 pickup, 2 pickup, and 3 pickup versions from the same guy. But it's something about not having anything right there and being able to strum like a madman. Is there technically less magnetic string pull? Yes. However, there's no quantifiable way to measure that in a way that makes sense to me anyways. So it's all about the feel of this and the fact that it's still a carved top. It's not a flat top like a Junior. It still pulls off and looks and feels like a high-end guitar, but it gives you a little bit of a different flavor. But of course, a cheaper way to get that is the Jared James Nickel signature through Epiphone. And our last one tonight, my friends. Look at this Dave Mustaine custom shot Flying V. But holy cow. If I would have got this as my review piece, I would have kept it in my collection. This is the first one I've seen that has that extra wide, almost quilty flame top to it, and it was sold at a pretty good deal. I was tempted to pick this up because it's just like, yeah, this is how all of them should have looked, but that's just my personal preference. I don't really like the pinstripey flames as much. This one has exactly what I was looking for, so I was not surprised when this one sold quickly, because it just looks good at every angle. But that is Dave Mustaine number 56 of the limited edition run. And speaking of that, I think we're going to be seeing Dave Mustaine's signature Les Paul sometime this year. I'm glad they've spaced those out though. I was getting kind of Dave Mustained out because unfortunately, I'm just not a big fan of the neck profile on these guitars, but I look forward to documenting that 24 fret Les Paul. But all right, Troglodytes, that is going to do it for tonight's episode. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day, and you might even enjoy this next one.